Welcome to a brand new chapter in your aviation journey. I'm T.H. Lee, CFI, CFII, MEI, AGI, and IGI. And hey, first off, a huge congratulations on earning your flight instructor certificate. You've officially mastered the mechanics of flight. But today, well, we are unpacking the true secret to effective instruction. Throughout this explainer, we're going to dive deep into how to read your student's psychology and how to build the kind of unbreakable trust that turns nervous beginners into seriously confident aviators. Let's get right into it.
You know, you've probably figured this out already, but flying the airplane is actually the easy part. A flawless pilot can be a downright terrible instructor if they lack empathy. Your real challenge from this day forward is understanding the beautifully complex human being sitting in the right seat next to you. Because if you can't read their mind or gauge their stress or adapt to how they learn, your perfect stick and rudder skills just aren't going to matter. Think of this as our flight plan. We'll start on the ground with student psychology and basic needs, climb into defense mechanisms and stress, navigate through the core elements of communication, steer clear of the barriers, and then land on some incredibly actionable trust-building techniques. All right, let's initiate our takeoff roll and tackle step one, understanding fundamental human needs. Because before a student can even begin to process complex aviation concepts, certain baseline requirements absolutely must be met.
Every single student operates on a hierarchy of needs, what we call the PSLES model. It goes from basic physiological needs all the way up to self-actualization. Let's look at this in the real world. Imagine you've got a student who's sitting next to you, freezing in a drafty Cessna 152 in the dead of winter. That physical discomfort, it completely blocks their ability to learn. Then comes security. Think about the sheer unadulterated terror a student feels during their very first aerodynamic stall. If they feel unsafe in that cockpit, their brain's learning centers literally shut down. You just cannot teach the finer points of lift and drag to someone who is shivering or terrified. Moving right along into our next phase, we need to talk about mental shields. When a student's ego takes a hit or they feel threatened, they're going to subconsciously put up psychological defenses. Spotting these is absolutely critical for safety. You're going to encounter these defense mechanisms all the time. So let's break down this CPR-FRFRD acronym. It's a mouthful, but stay with me. You've got compensation, where a student masks a weak skill by showing off a strong one. Projection is blaming others for their mistakes. Rationalization is making logical but totally false excuses. Flight or denial is flat out ignoring reality. Reaction formation is faking the exact opposite emotion of what they really feel. Fantasy is daydreaming instead of facing the challenge. Repression is subconsciously burying something traumatic, like a really hard landing. And displacement is taking their anger out on a safer target, like yelling at the feeler because they're actually mad at you. Seeing these as psychological shields rather than just stubbornness is your job now.
I guarantee we've all heard variations of this on the flight line. A student totally bombs a maneuver or fails a check ride, and their immediate response is, well, I only failed because the check pilot was in a terrible mood. It's textbook deflection. They're just shifting the blame for their own poor performance right onto someone else's shoulders. We call this projection, and as an instructor, you have to see right through it. Now, the absolute worst thing you can do here is get defensive or start an argument. Your role is to gently but firmly course correct. You acknowledge that they're frustrated, sure, but you don't validate the excuse. Instead, you gracefully pivot the conversation back to the actual issue, say their crosswind landing technique, so they can take ownership and actually improve. Okay, now picture this highly dangerous scenario. A maintenance student leaves a heavy screwdriver just sitting right there on the wing of an aircraft. Instead of realizing the catastrophic potential of foreign object debris, FOD, getting sucked into a jet engine, they just brush it off. They say something like, hey, it's no big deal, nothing happened, completely minimizing a massive hazard. This is flight or denial. Why do they do this? Well, it's a subconscious protection mechanism against immense guilt or fear. Admitting that they almost caused a fatal accident is just too painful for their ego to handle. So their brain literally deletes the severity of the situation. In aviation, ignoring reality is fatal. You have to step in not as a punisher, but as a mentor and break through that denial so they truly respect the lethal consequences of complacency. Here's another one that'll make any pilot sweat. Imagine a student busting a whole short line at a busy Class C airport. A departing jet roars right past them. A massive, serious safety violation. But instead of apologizing, the student puts on this artificial, careless bravado. Whatever, we didn't hit him, did we?
That right there is reaction formation, because behind that toxic, arrogant attitude is a student who is absolutely terrified. They know they just narrowly avoided a collision. And that underlying anxiety is so overwhelming that they project the exact opposite attitude to compensate for it. When you get back to the debriefing room, don't just attack the attitude, address the fear. Break through that false bravado by creating a safe space for them to just admit they messed up and got scared. Beyond just the defense mechanisms, you've got to constantly monitor their stress responses. Normal fight or flight stress is actually a good thing. It sharpens a student up, makes them highly sensitive to their surroundings, and prompts rapid, rational action. Abnormal stress, on the other hand, is incredibly dangerous. If your student suddenly starts laughing inappropriately, shows severe unprovoked anger, or goes totally passive and robotically agreeable, you have a major problem. That is a hard terminate the lesson immediately trigger. You calmly but firmly say, "My flight controls," you take over the aircraft, get back on the ground safely, and seek further evaluation before they ever fly again. So, now that we know how to read their psychological state and spot those stress levels, how do we successfully transmit our knowledge to them? Let's get into the actual mechanics of communication. Communication is this dynamic, constantly interrelating loop. You've got the source, that's you, the symbols, the words and gestures you use, and the receiver, your student. Listen, if you tell a student to pitch for airspeed and they just stare at you blankly, your symbols have failed. And you can't just repeat the exact same phrase louder. You have to constantly monitor their feedback. Look at their facial expressions. Notice how tight their grip is on the yoke. And then dynamically adjust the symbols you're using until you see that concept finally click. Building that perfect communication loop is definitely an art form, but there are unseen traps lying in wait that can completely destroy it. We need to be hyper-aware of these barriers. Remember the acronym COIL. It stands for the 4 primary barriers. First up is confusion. If you yell stall, meaning an aerodynamic stall, but your student thinks the engine just died, you have confusion. Next is the overuse of abstractions. Saying fly it aerodynamically is way too vague to be helpful to anybody. Third is interference. This could be a roaring engine or maybe just a terribly uncomfortable clamping headset that literally prevents them from hearing you. And finally, the most challenging barrier of them all. Lack of common experience. This is the absolute greatest barrier to effective communication. As an experienced pilot, you have this vast mental library to draw from. But telling a 0-hour student that they are behind the airplane means absolutely nothing to them. They literally don't have the experience to visualize what that metaphor means. You can never, ever assume a new student understands complex jargon or airline-style ATC phrasing. You must relentlessly tailor your explanations down to their specific level of experience. All right, we are entering our final descent here. Let's take all of these principles and translate them into actionable instructional skills that build real trust and guarantee safety in the cockpit. Elite instructors don't just lecture, we connect. We use active listening, which, by the way, in a noisy cockpit means paying attention to their breathing rate over the intercom or the tension in their voice, not just the words they're saying. You've got to use effective questioning, too. Don't ask lazy questions like, did you understand that? Ask, hey, why did we just lose 50 feet of altitude in that turn? Make them demonstrate the knowledge. And remember, the absolute best instructors practice continuous enhancement of their own knowledge. You are a lifelong student of aviation, and the deeper your well of knowledge, the clearer your explanations are going to be. I want to leave you with a pretty powerful question to reflect on. Is your student truly understanding you? Your ultimate goal as a CFI isn't just to churn out pilots who can pass a written test. It's to forge safe, confident, and competent aviators. And that kind of transformation, it starts with empathy. When you understand their psychology, recognize their defenses, and communicate flawlessly, you elevate yourself from just being a seat filler into being a true mentor. Take these techniques into the cockpit with you on your very next flight, and just watch how deeply it changes the way you teach. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, safe flying out there.